All right, well, good morning. This is Jay Hughes with Press On, and my guest today is Mike Hanson. And Mike joined New York Life in October of 2008, and he had a successful career as a college and professional hockey player. Mike spent over 4 years as a registered representative of New York Life in Boise, Idaho. He became a partner at the Idaho General Office of New York Life in February 2012. Mike is responsible right now today to recruit and train and retain new agents each year to join him. And he also coaches and leads the 17 agents on his current team today. Mike originally hails from Oakville, Ontario, Canada. He is married to his wife, Jessica. And Mike, that's how you and I kind of met each other, actually, was through Jessica. She and I worked together for a lot of years in the mortgage industry. And Mike and Jessica have 2 daughters, age 4 and 6. And again, Mike, I just want to say thank you so much for being willing to come on the call today, and thanks for being here with me this morning.
Absolutely, thank you. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Well, hey, the reason I reached out to you, we've been in contact over the years. As I mentioned, you and I have known each other through your wife, Jessica. But I noticed on social media a few months ago that you won this Partner of the Year award in the region for your region in 2015. I was like, that's amazing. And I know that you are an incredible worker. You are a grinder. You hone your craft. You have really invested time in yourself and trying to grow personally and develop your game. And so, I just thought it might be great to have you share a little bit with the audience that we've got this morning and just talk a little bit about your year of 2015. What happened, what went well, what were some of the factors contributed to your success of earning this Partner of the Year award from New York Life?
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, I think first off, what's most important to me is I'm extremely humbled for our accomplishments as a team. And although I physically received the award, without my team, there's no way any of that would have happened. And it was the first time that anybody from the Idaho General Office won the Pacific Zone Partner of the Year, but my team also won the Pacific Life Case Champion, which means basically, the 17 agents with all their life paid cases divided by the 17. So I won that award. And then I had 2 other awards that I've won in the past that involved recruiting and retention. So it was a absolute banner year. I think what most important to me is, we had 100% retention. All 17 agents were all manpower, all retained, which is, a big deal for us. And I think, you asked what went well or what happened, I really went with the Strength Finders approach, and I'm not too sure out there, anybody that's very familiar with the book, a lot of people are, I'd used that philosophy about 3 years coaching. The year we won the national championship, and, I decided last year I was going to do it, and, what that meant was I just spent a lot of time working on people's strengths and just getting them more engaged and, practicing to be the best that they absolutely could be in their certain areas of interest, versus trying to get them to get a little bit better in other places. And with that, we also changed up our training. And, so we found a lot of growth in some certain areas where we were struggling in the past, but we also teamed up people with other players that had a lot of wealth of knowledge and stuff that was able to help them with their practice. So, it was a strong annual plan that we had the year before, but, looking at where we finished the season last year and going through things, I don't think that we could have done a better job following through with what we'd planned to do.
Well, I love that. I mean, and I know a lot of people that'll be listening to this are familiar with Strength Finders, but it's that piece of leveraging individual strengths. And you and I talked about this even before we kind of hit record on this call, that people are different, and everybody does have different strengths and different weaknesses. So it sounds like it was really a commitment on your part from a vision and leadership standpoint to encourage people to leverage the strengths of who they are. And that means that not everybody's going to be following an exact script and doing everything exactly the same way. Is that accurate?
It's absolutely accurate, and it doesn't make any sense. I'm a big believer in getting people to do things that they thoroughly enjoy and love to do. And I said, well, if you're not really interested in that, then let's figure out another plan. And that's the advantage that we have under our system. I've got a managing partner and then a full-time trainer as well. We all bring different things to the table, and between the 3 of us and some of the experiences I've got through my study groups and some of the stuff that we go to, we just decided let's focus on just making everyone be the absolute best that they can be at what they're best and most excited about.
Yeah. Amen. Okay, so that said, we know that's true. You and I are in agreement there that everybody's different, got to leverage strengths. But at the same time, we both know that there are some principles that are universal. There's some habits, there's some disciplines that successful salespeople utilize. Now, it may not be, they may not apply them identically, but the principles are true. So I'm just curious for you, what do you see? Maybe these are things, these are habits or disciplines or traits in your own career, and also things that you've seen in some of your most successful agents. But what are some of those things that tend to separate kind of the average producer from what, like a top producing agent?
hmm And we did just this right before we had started. I mean, I honestly believe that there's such a small little difference between somebody that is just average and somebody that's just the absolute best producer. And for me, that's the most frustrating part as a coach, and then even as a leader and a friend, because ultimately all these people become part of my family. I just believe each person has that ability to do it, but it's just a little bit of self-doubt, or it's just absolutely themselves getting in their own way. I think that one of the traits that I think is extremely important is, a relentless pursuit of excellence, or that ability just to do something more of something that others aren't willing to do. And it's taking that extra step. It's just doing that extra thing. The world's changed quite significantly, which we'll, address a little bit later with the social media stuff and that. You've got to be different right now. And, I just think that for you to succeed, you need to be in front of people. You need to have a good, solid follow-up system. And again, you just have to have that ability to do things that other people aren't doing that gets you to stand out. For me, I think I have a huge thirst for knowledge and bettering myself. And, it's difficult because you've got yourself and then you've got your team. I ultimately lead 17 people myself, and then I have a whole bunch of new people that are coming on. I'm just always trying to get better at being a leader, a coach, and a guide, but I'm also pushing that onto my agents. And the one thing I ask them to never be is complacent. Read books, read blogs, be engaged in trends, and reach out and have a study group. Get around, and even if it's people from your office, for me, I get a lot of information from other people around me, but I also have a study group within my organization. And one thing that I did bring into it last year was, I hired a personal coach that had no relation at all to my business, and I can say that helped me a lot with clarity, but it also gave me a different perspective, because I'm so used to being in my zone that sometimes I have no idea what else is out there. And it's given me a chance to realize that maybe I'm not as great as I think I am at some things, and some stuff, sit back and appreciate what you've accomplished, yet now how can you get further.
I loved what you shared. I mean, the whole thing, especially that piece in the beginning when you talked about doubt, that sometimes it's not that much that separates a top producer for somebody that might be average or even really struggling, but sometimes it is that doubt that creeps in, that keeps people from picking up the phone and making that phone call, or stepping out of the office and going and seeing that client that they know they need to go see. When you are managing your team and you're kind of coaching somebody who maybe is struggling with doubt, what do you say to them? How do you help them, or how do you encourage them to get past that? Or what are some things maybe that you've seen in some of your salespeople that have moved past that piece of self-doubt?
Yeah. Well, the good thing for me at our office is we have such diversity. We've got one of our agents has a PhD in microbiology. I mean, honestly, I think she's probably smarter than our entire office combined. And we've got all the way to somebody that hasn't even graduated from high school, who's been with us almost 20 years. And I can tell you that most people out there would trade their W-2 or their 1099 for him any day of the week. So for people, I'm just like, we all come from different places, and if it's something that you truly are passionate about doing, and it's something that you want to reach out to and hit, we've got to get over some of these things. And I think, going back to what I said about what we worked on last year, most people are extremely comfortable with what they're best at. So what we did was, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and find some crazy thing to do, we just decided, like, let's work on doing this, and let's battle those obstacles. And I think that once people see a little bit of positivity, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't go from 2 sales to 50 sales. Like, let's look at just trying to make easy steps. And for me, the accountability on their activity is what matters the most, because you can't control people saying yes. You can't control the sales cycle side of things. But if you're doing the activity that leads up to that, you're going to have success. The numbers are what they are. It is what it is, no matter what thing that you're involved with out there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No, it's that's controlling the aspect that's within your control as a salesperson, right? Like making the calls. You can hone your craft, you can hone your message, and that definitely will improve kind of the hits and people going ahead and moving forward with a transaction, whether that be life insurance or a mortgage transaction or real estate. But you got to get the actions in, and holding people accountable is a huge piece of that. So I did want to make sure that we talked about this. I know a couple of years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, we hopped on the phone and we were talking, and you kind of shared your story of when you kind of jumped in this business. You were thinking about, how am I going to do this? I mean, you shared you didn't really have a network of people, and you were thinking through like, how am I going to make this work? And so you talked about, you did a lot of it through networking with prospects on the golf course. And I know you shared this was not a case where you were simply out just fooling around playing golf. This was very strategic on your part. This was a business building activity. And I loved it. And I know there will be people that will really appreciate this story. So go ahead and share with us again, like how did that work for you?
Right, and I mean, to go to what we said on me not having a network. I mean, I literally had came to Boise, played for their professional hockey team for half of a season, was then gone for a year and a half, and out of all of Jessica's friends, I was the only one. She was the only one that was married, so I didn't have a market. I mean, we do what's called that Project 200 when everyone gets started. Mine was a Project 5, and it had one of my friends was a farmer's insurance agent, so I know he wasn't buying anything from me. So, I looked at it going, people do this for a living. People are extremely successful at it. I watched the people up on my top 4 and thought, hey, if those people can do it, so can I. And I'm going to do everything that they tell me to do and do more. But, then it's that whole thing of, I had the same concern that most people have when they get going into sales. How am I going to meet people, and what's the best way for me to build my practice? So, I decided very early that I needed to do what I like to call social mobility, and that's you having the ability to create strong relationships with like-minded or focused people. And for me, I don't know anything about cars, so me to go talk to car enthusiasts made 0 sense. They're going to sniff me out immediately. I was a pretty decent golfer, with my hockey background and everything. I felt like I was a pretty likable person. So I decided that I was going to focus on that area, and what I did was I went out pretty much every day that I possibly could to the golf course. I joined twosomes or threesomes and created relationships. And I think anybody out there that is passionate about something and they do things that they enjoy doing, golf especially, by the time you finish a round, half the time you know more about that person than maybe their spouse does, because it's a long round of golf. And, just like anything else in sales, you say what you do, most people don't want to talk to you anymore about it. But right. You just got to battle that, and you get people answering questions. I always ask people, but I don't hit anybody with this big blue baseball bat. I'm not aggressive. I just realized quickly that you've got to create those relationships, and that I dove all in. I think that anybody needs to have a good plan, and everything they need to do needs to be entirely intentional. I talk to my agents all the time about everything you do has to be for a purpose. And I also am a big fan of people doing things that they really enjoy doing. That way it makes it more fun and exciting. And if you can find things that you're involved in and you like, then you're more passionate about it, and you're going to be around other people who share that same passion.
Yeah, well, I want everybody to underline that. I mean, this was a strategy for you. It was on purpose. This wasn't just you going out to enjoy solo while you did, but like it was strategic in the sense that you're going out there to be introduced to people, to introduce yourself to people, to learn about them. And it sounds like you did that through asking them a lot of questions. But I'm curious, after a round, so let's say, you go out there, we know it takes you 4.5, maybe 5 hours. You're meeting 2 or 3 guys or gals for the first time. What did the follow-up look like for you? Like, you're closing out a round. Like, what if you never see them again? Like, what was the intentional strategy you had as you close things out?
So my approach is very simple. When I was near finishing a round or anything, I always would, and to figure out who I wanted to really focus on. It's not easy to be able to say to 3 people, "Hey, that was great. Let's do it again." But you can. But what I would do is just say, "You know what? I had a really good time. I'd like to get your contact info, and then let's go ahead and play again." And you can do the same thing in anything that you're doing. I talked to one of my agents who was at gymnastics the other day, and I said, just grab one of the other, husbands or the wives that are there and talk to them a bunch. And then the next time, make sure you talk to them again. Because you want to get to a point where you can say, "Hey, Jay, it's been amazing getting to know you, but, I just realized the other day I've never once shared with you how we work with people." And you can then close that gap. I can tell you right now that I'm not a pushy guy. I never once jumped all over someone the first time we met. It usually took 2 or 3 rounds of golf potentially before I got them to that space. But again, it's creating a good, solid relationship with someone that they felt comfortable enough to say, "You know what, I'd love to sit down and meet." Not very often do you have someone that says, "You know what, hey, I'm in the mood for buying a house. Let's talk tomorrow." But if you grow that relationship, as soon as they are in the mood or they're thinking about it, they're going to think of you. And I just made sure that I kept track of everybody that I met, and that was how I tried to develop my relationship. It wasn't perfect. There was a lot of people that it didn't pan out with, but I can tell you right now that, if you have a system, it works.
Well, this is exactly why I wanted to have you on. I mean, this eliminates any and all excuses for any real estate agent or loan officer or anybody else involved in sales who would be listening to this today. You're talking about a guy who is in Boise, Idaho, knows 4 or 5 people, and literally is starting from scratch.
And I don't cold call. I never have,
Yeah,
never would. I'm
weren't
a
cold
positive cornflake guy for breakfast. I love positive cornflakes. I hate cold calling. And, I think now in this day of age, it has changed since I started. You've got that ability to do what's called social media stalking now. But that's if I was in this environment today, I'm using that to my to my strength to be able to find out more about those people at those businesses. And I don't believe that if you're really focusing on an area and then you're reaching out to those business owners to try to do business, or however approach you want to take, I don't feel that is a cold call. To me, a cold call is open up a phone book or buying leads.
Right.
I never did that. I had zero interest because it's not something that I found that was worthwhile to me.
Yeah. Well, to go from zero to partner of the year and have a team of 17 folks working with you is just a phenomenal story. So I thank you again so much for sharing that. I know, Mike, that you're very busy, just like everybody that's listening to this call today. They're busy as well, and they may be thinking, how in the world, like, how would I add a 5-hour round, once or twice a week to everything else I'm doing? But I know you're busy. Maybe take a minute to just share a couple either time management strategies or some habits related to kind of how you balance your time or whatnot. What would you share to people that are maybe struggling with that today?
This is the game changer of all game changers, and I think it really is the big reason why I'm fortunate enough to be able to get where I was today. But it hasn't always been that way, and it was something I really struggled with, and that was the reason why I aligned myself with a coach and really reading, and then the accountability side is because I don't think it comes naturally to anybody. Most of us really want to do everything, and we get unfocused on it. But for me, I take great pride in working extremely hard and playing hard, but you need to make sure that you have everything aligned. And I see people out there that have a work calendar and a home calendar. It's impossible to do that. You have one calendar. You can't replicate yourself. If I did, I would be I would be excited. You just can't do it, and you can't afford to make mistakes. So everything that I have planned, it's all calendared. And, I have all of my non-negotiables on there first, anything that I need to be at for the training, my meetings, and everything in that capacity. And then I have, my prospecting time, And all my call time, it's all calendared.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge believer in the fact that if it's on the calendar, it's probably going to happen. If not, it's got a great chance of happening. And so then it can be planned and then you're accountable for it. And it amazes me today when I look at working with my agents, I'm like, well, when are you reaching out to those people? Oh, well, I'm gonna. Well, when? It has to be on there. And, for me, I think managing your calendar, it's just so important. And for me, my family time, my activities, everything that I do outside of work, it has to be all on there. And I also make sure that I have time for myself. I don't quite use golf as I used to anymore, because now in our capacity we don't do sales. But I still meet strong candidates out there from that. But for me, it gives me that chance to still go out there and do something on my own. And, I know a lot of our agents, maybe go get a massage or, go play some sport or something. Those are all important things that need to be on everyone's calendars.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing tip. We do talk about that all the time. It's you talked about putting the non-negotiables got to be first, and that might be too. That could be your morning routine, right? Getting your exercise in, or you mentioned making sure that your sales calls, prospecting time is on the calendar, that you've made that appointment with yourself. Otherwise, like you said, it just does not happen. And I love the tip too. I'm a big advocate for one calendar. You're not two people, right? And your work life and your home life, your personal life, they're not separated. And so much of what we do, between personal and business, there's overlap, and there's I just don't know how a person would manage. I know some people do it. Everybody works a little differently, but if you struggle with that, I would agree. I think going to a one calendar system, I don't know any other way.
No, it's you see someone that has a iPhone and then they have a paper calendar, and it's okay if you're on the road and the paper calendar because you can't access the phone and do all that, but like you then have to schedule time as soon as you then have the ability to make sure that you're moving those to each other, because there's nothing that frustrates me more than somebody showing up. I'm in the lobby in the morning, there's somebody sitting out there waiting for someone and the person's not even here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine that professionalism, and it happens all the time.
It does. All right, well, that's a challenge for those of you that are listening. Maybe think about that today. Maybe that's your action item from today's call is, do you have your prospecting time blocked out on your calendar for this week? Do you have it blocked out? And if not, let's get that done. Mike, we got a few minutes left. We mentioned earlier you've been managing a team now. You've got 17 folks that are working with you that you manage and coach. Maybe talk about the leadership aspect of what you do. Are there any tips or strategies, something that was key for you as you were growing into a leader that really made a difference in kind of this position of leadership that you're in today?
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest asset is my work ethic, and I can say that was taught to me by my father at a very young age. It's the single most important attribute when I feel where I've gotten today, or where I see other people that have seen me, and I thank them for that. And I think my big thing is I just love winning. Like, I love winning. Like, everything that I do, I want to win, and so I'm just willing to do that little bit that it takes, and if not, I'll learn what it's needed to really make sure that the next time I have my best shot. But for me, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's a huge part is getting a personal coach or being involved in a study group, because we all have certain skill sets, and we all have certain traits that we carry that we feel is strong leadership, personality traits and stuff, but you need help, and you need people to be able to make you the best at what you do. So I'm extremely engaged with my study group and in my company. I spend the time and the money. We travel each quarter, or not each quarter, each half of quarter, to see with each other, and we go through things that would help us with it. I'll tell you that of our 2 full-day sessions, we spend 4 hours of it discussing certain qualities of leadership and ways that we can make each other better.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know that about you. You are a big time advocate for investing in yourself. You've done that, and I know you do that with your folks as well. A couple other quick questions as we close. There's going to be some folks on listening to today's call, Mike, that are perhaps new to sales. Maybe they're pretty new to the mortgage business or real estate, or maybe it is the insurance industry. but they're new, and they're like, maybe it's back when, like you, when you first started, and maybe they don't have a network, or maybe they do, but they just don't know where should they be investing their time. What advice would you give to somebody who really does want to be successful 12 months from now, but they're just not even sure where to start?
Hmm. I think my advice for someone new is just to go for it and give everything they got. I remember when I started, I was looking, or like literally, and I know this might sound a little upsetting or whatever to some people, but I literally was looking at some of the people on my floor thinking, if those people can do it, why can't I? And I remember thinking too, as I'm in the parking lot and, there's these nice vehicles and people are all dressed well and everything, I'm like, I want that, so I need to do what it takes to get to that. And, and then you've got the retention numbers. I mean, no matter who we're talking to on this call, in whatever industry they're in, the chances are the numbers aren't very good.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I also look at the people that have made this work, made one of these industries work, and how amazing their life is. And I just said, you know what, you got to go for it. And for me, I'm an extremely positive person. I'm like, learn some more. I always tried to get some time with some of the best people, at my office or in the industry. I was always watching videos, but I think most importantly is get a system in place that will allow you to succeed. And if you make that plan and work the plan, you have your absolute best chance. Be extremely intentional in everything that you do, and don't waste your time doing things that don't matter. I talk about calendar and everything. I mean, I even had lunch calendared when I first started, and I also had fantasy hockey time and Facebook time. I said, these are things that I'm probably going to do anyways, so why don't I just calendar it so it doesn't ruin the things that's going to make me mad. And so I went in earlier. I did my fantasy hockey stuff in the morning. I have a little Facebook in the midday and in the afternoon, and then I had lunch scheduled. But the most important things never got skipped. And for someone new too, spend time doing things that you enjoy doing and meeting people that you can relate with. If you're going to call on businesses, utilize LinkedIn, utilize what's out there. And I think for us is, my biggest thing that I say to my agents is, be extremely different and be prepared, because that's the stuff that stands out these days. You have all this access now out there. It takes people to be a little bit different, to do something a little bit extra of, and those are the people that people want to do business with.
Yeah, amen to that. And to that point of being prepared, I find it incredible sometimes that people, it's livelihood on the line, right? The opportunity to be successful, to put food on the table for your family, and then to step into an appointment and not be prepared, not know what you're going to ask, not know what you're going to do, not know what you're going to say, not know what your system is for follow-up. And so to that last point, man, I want to encourage that as well. Come and be prepared, and like you opened with, and then go for it, right? Like go for it.
I have my quote I look at every day is, Jerry Rice, and I received it from one of our partners in my study group when I first started, and it's, today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you look at that's the epitome of where we need to be today, because like I said, so many people can go get absolutely everything that all of us are talking to people about. It needs to be from you. You need to stand out. They need to trust you, and they need to have that rapport. But when something comes up, you have to be the person they're thinking of. And it's that extra effort and all those little things that you're going to do that's going to add up to the big one.
Well, and I think for you, to your credit, what you've done so well is you've done that and couched all of that in the context of relationship. And if you're listening today, that would be probably the biggest point I want to emphasize with you. Is you're talking to, you're listening to Mike today, who is, did take it from zero to partner of the year for New York Life, and did that in the context of building relationships. He didn't know a bunch of people. Mike, you didn't know a bunch of people, but you built relationships, and that is how you earn their trust. And I just love that about your story. So before we close, anything else perhaps that you want to share that I may have missed before we head out?
Yeah, and I look at it, and you talk about having a system put in place, and, a calendar is a huge part of it, but you need to know what you're doing when you're handling all of these prospects or all of these relationships. And and it can be extremely simple all the way up to you using the Outlook and everything else on that end. But for me, I had a 6 to 8 yellow sheet system, and every single human being that I met went into that system. And that's where I struggle today with my agents is they don't do a good follow-up. Most people go follow-up once or twice. I mean, I've read 6, I've read 8. I mean, the last time I think they said it takes 12 or 14 times now that you have to reach out to someone to actually get them to do business. I don't care what the numbers are. You need to have a system. And for me, if I had met someone in December of last year and you came in while I was an agent with that system and said, hey, where's Jane Doe? I could have been able to tell you. And that way I didn't lose anybody in there, because you being able to meet people and start creating relationships is just so valuable. Why waste the time and effort to meet other people when you have that all there? And go back and just make sure that you can find some way to move them. And for me, once I got them to page 6 or page 8 and I highlighted them in green, that meant that I finally made them a client. And I did everything I could to move them from one sheet to the next sheet with a system. And maybe it's a 2-week follow-up, maybe it's an email, maybe you go over and drop some donuts off for them and their staff. Whatever it is, have something in place so that you are doing something that's different, because everybody else gives up real fast.
Yeah, no doubt. And I, to the number piece, what I have found just kind of in reading over the years, at least in the mortgage business, the average loan officer will follow up with a real estate agent about 3 or 4 times. Right. And then once it gets it, that's it, and it's just like, well, they must not want to work with me because they haven't called me back or they haven't sent me a deal. And it takes 6, 8, 10 touches. And it's like you said too, Mike, it's a text message. It's maybe a post on social media. It's dropping by their office. It's sending them a book. It's making the phone call. It's printing out an article that you read and sticking a sticky note on there and putting it in the mail and say, hey, you know what? I read this and I think this would be important for you. It's the totality of all those touches in the context of relationship. And I love that you're closing with that, because most people, they give up, and you've got to have that system in place for follow-up. So I really appreciate that. Mike, thanks so much for being on today. What a great story you have. And again, congratulations on all the success you have had, especially with that Partner of Year award in your region for New York Life.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time. And with me, I've been there, done that, and I've reached out to other people. And hopefully, anything that we talked about today could be that light bulb that makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Mike. This has been your host, Jay Hughes, with Press On, helping you to close more loans in less time.